What I'd love to see is that the Pope, for example, were as willing, even half as willing, as the Dalai Lama to learn the science and to change his mind accordingly. And perhaps it would be great if the Episcopal, I don't know what they are, bishop or top gun, were to do the same thing and to emulate the position that the Dalai Lama has taken, so that you emphasize what's important to people, namely community, learning to live a good life, meditating so that you are peaceful and not anxious and all those good things, and leave the metaphysics aside.
I guess I could say that the new presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church here in the U.S. was just ordained, or whatever the phrase is, this morning. And she's a scientist, and she was an oceanographer. And I looked up her publications for the time when she was active in science, and she was an expert on planktonic cephalopods from the California Current near the Washington-Oregon border. So it's highly specific, but it's and highly taxonomic, but nonetheless, she definitely is a scientist. So it remains to be seen whether or not this provides, whether this will lead to study groups or new forms of dialogue between religious communities and scientists. I certainly hope so.
I think one of the points that Pat was making, though, is sadly a couple of the people that were supposed to be here today, Richie Davidson has University of Wisconsin-Madison, who did a lot of the work on fMRI of meditative states of the Dalai Lama's monks from Namgyal Monastery. Can't be here with us today because he's got a prospective donor there and has got to go and do a presentation. Paul Ekman would have been here today, but his wife has been ill, so he can't be with us. But I think that this point of Pat's is correct, that we should, I mean, the fMRI work that has been being done by Richie Davidson and other people is really very interesting and very instructive. And I think, you know, I've often said it's the neuroscience, stupid. If we start understanding a bit more of that, I think we'll have some better answers to some of these vexing issues, and perhaps the problems will be less problematic. Sam, do you want to say something? Since you are... Did you want to come on down here?
Got a mic for him here. Sam?
See, this is the director of the Hayden Planetarium, who does this all the time.
He's got something to say himself, by the way.
What?
He's got something to say himself.
Neil, yes, I know. Well, why don't you both come down here? That'd be much easier, if you don't mind.
Us both?
Yes. Because I think you both had responses to this.
I did have a response, but it's his turn.
Well, it's all right. You can just leave the mic up there and come on down.
Okay, I can hand him the mic. That's fine.
Are you jet lagged? You can just take a chair. Take a seat. I'll take the mic. Now, Sam, you've actually written on Buddhism, and you have an essay which I recall called "Kill the Buddha."
Yeah,
because you
take. Although it's
obviously from that very old, what was it, 12th century monk or something.
There's a koan.
But your position is that, in fact, well, why don't you say what your position is?
I just wanted to first respond to you, Joan, because I feel like something in my remarks struck you as a caricature both of religion and science, as you said. And I want to dispute that, although conceding several points to you. One is that the point that Richard conceded, which is it may be that there is room for different voices here, and it may be politically necessary to, at various moments, use the language of a community so as to draw them into an actual engagement with modernity. But you were saying much more than that. You were basically saying that it is highly doubtful that we can get morality really up on a foundation without believing something religious, without believing that one of our books is not an ordinary book, but may be the Word of God, or may be the best book ever written, never to be superseded. And I highly doubt that. And I think when the conversation moves into morality, I want to try to give you a rational foundation, what I think is a truly rational foundation for morality, which doesn't partake of any superstition. But the thing I want to point out to you is that it seemed to me you're pointing out the role of bias in science. You're saying that you can pick out individual scientists or individual theories or individual moments in science where scientists were just flat wrong, and they were wrong based on their own biases. And that is a totally legitimate thing to do. It is a totally scientific thing to do. I mean, bias in science is bad science. Bias in religion is faith, it's doctrine, it's redeeming, it's holy. I mean, you don't have the same corrective mechanism in religion. And just before you, I just want to bring in Pat Churchland's piece. The reason why neuroscientists are queuing up to meet with the Dalai Lama and not with the Pope is that there is a different discursive tradition within Buddhism than within Christianity and certainly within Islam. And the Tibetan Buddhism is, in its totality, being practiced as a religion by most Tibetan Buddhists in this world. But the Dalai Lama is a very sophisticated connoisseur of modernity, and he's interested in science. And there is an empiricism to Buddhism which makes legitimate the statement that you hear on the lips of many Buddhists that Buddhism is not even a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a mode it's an introspective methodology. And I hope to say something more about that. But the thing that has to be admitted in the spirit of science is that whatever is discovered by meditation, for instance, is not Buddhist. I mean, we don't talk about Muslim algebra. We don't talk about Christian physics, and there are good reasons why we don't, because those are real areas of discourse, and they got lifted out of the cultural contingencies where they were discovered. And we will not talk about Buddhist meditation ultimately, and the Dalai Lama is unique among religious figures in that he will admit that.
Yeah, but I think those comments are very, very much on point. So two things. First, I express skepticism that we could have an ethics or a morality that was not derivable from a religious or faith tradition. That doesn't mean I'm not asserting, though, that that's necessary. I'm just skeptical, because my experience with ethical discussions, which were taking place solely in a rationalist context and without any system of values associated with them, were inconclusive and seemed to me to be very open to manipulation, particularly manipulation for the profit motive and things of this sort. So I think it's an open question, and for someone who does actually want or envision the disappearance of religion in the modernity of the future, then there has to be some really hard work done on how to develop a system of values without that, and that's really hard. Secondly, I do want to speak to the point of whether there can be any critical analysis within religious thought. And if I may say, I think you're underestimating even within the Roman Catholic tradition, the role of critical scholarship. And I'm impressed at how much critical analysis there is on the subject of gender and sexuality within the Roman Catholic departments of theology, and I've personally been attending conferences at Loyola Chicago about this. And I've asked them, how does critical scholarship within theology, which examines the truth of, or the biblical accuracy or justifiability of what is currently doctrine from the bishops and the clergy, how does theological scholarship get to them? And can't they just do whatever they want as the clergy in charge, irrespective of what biblical scholarship is or theological scholarship is showing? And they've argued that, to me, that it's similar to the interaction between legal scholarship and law, that legal scholarship doesn't translate necessarily into law, but at some point those who have to write laws do have to refer back to the body of scholarship in their subject. And so I think it is an indirect connection. And